I'm a mom raising elementary school-aged kids. Recently, I was taken aback by a surprising turn of events. Considering the world is half men and half women, it was shocking to find out my ex-boyfriend ended up marrying my sister, and though I feel guilty towards my sister and her husband, I've been seeing my ex. I work at a supermarket in the mornings. While my kids are at school, I head to work to stock shelves. My husband is a respected manager at his company. Our kids are diligent in their studies and have great social skills. However, focusing solely on raising them led to a gap in my career. Despite wanting to use my degree, I couldn't find anyone willing to hire me. So when I saw a post on a local moms group about an urgent need for a shelf stocker at a supermarket, I jumped at the opportunity. It was a perfect fit since it's just a 10-minute walk from home, and I work there for 3 hours every morning. One weekend, my older sister, who lives far away, called me. She asked if I was working the next day, Sunday, and I told her I could meet her in the late afternoon. She was visiting nearby for the day and mentioned she had someone she wanted me to meet. It turns out she came to New York, wanting to introduce me to the man she plans to remarry. I informed my husband and went to meet my sister at the agreed location. My sister runs a popular restaurant in her area, known for its delicious wood-fired pizzas. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law passed away from a heart attack 4 years ago, and she's been managing the restaurant on her own since. She has 2 daughters, both in college. Despite my encouragement to remarry now that her kids are grown, she never seemed interested, absorbed in her work, but it seemed she finally found a partner to spend the rest of her life with. At the meeting spot, I was shocked when I saw who my future brother-in-law was. It was my ex, James. James and I met at 21 while working on the university student council, promising a future together. I never looked at another man, always waiting for James and visiting him often after graduating and starting a job. I was busy adapting to the corporate environment and learning my role. Both our families were not well off, but we hoped that together we could quickly establish ourselves. After 5 years of dating, I started to notice a change in James. Our daily calls became less frequent, and when we met, he seemed distracted and disinterested. When I asked what was wrong, they didn't give me any specifics. I figured work must be tough and gave them some space, but then a friend told me that James had been seeing another woman behind my back. I confronted James about playing both sides, but got nothing but a shameless turn of the back. And a few months later, I heard James had married a wealthy woman. I had been James's first love and thought we would spend our lives together, but his betrayal left me lost for a while. Then, to my surprise, the man my sister introduced me to was none other than James. My sister asked, "Right, didn't you say James went to your school? Do you guys know each other?" I replied briefly that we knew each other from student council work. Since I had never shown her a picture or mentioned his name, she had no idea James was my ex. I managed to stay composed and finished the meal in a warm atmosphere, though James seemed to avoid my gaze, something only I noticed. My sister expressed how eager she was to marry James, who was running a business nearby and treated her with such kindness that it made her blush. My husband teased her about what James was good at, to which she laughed it off, saying it was a secret. My sister and James said we should meet again before setting a date and left. My husband noticed something off about my look towards James and asked if something had happened back in school. I brushed it off, saying it felt odd, knowing someone from school would become my brother-in-law. He didn't press further, changing the topic. A few days later, while I was at work, James called, asking to meet up. He got my number from my sister and explained he was in New York for business training and was leaving the next day, but wanted to see me if I was free that evening. I met him at his hotel's coffee shop, and for the first time in a while, we could talk comfortably. Life is unpredictable, isn't it? Who would have thought you'd become my brother-in-law? I started. James then asked if I was okay with him marrying my sister. I told him as long as he treats my lonely sister well, I'm perfectly fine with it. He said he wouldn't marry her if I opposed. I reassured him that as long as our family is cared for, and he truly wants to spend his life with my sister, they should marry and live happily. As we talked, we got hungry, and James suggested we head to the lounge for some beers. James said, "Our connection is so strange. I always thought you were the only man for me. Then you go off and marry some rich girl, leaving me behind. Why did it end?" He explained. At first, I thought love was enough to get us through, but her mom's interference and disregard got to be too much. The wedding was entirely funded by my ex-wife's family. I thought my job was good enough to cover us afterward, but that wasn't the case. He went on to say that despite marrying for love, his mother-in-law's excessive meddling and unexpected visits caused a lot of stress, leading to frequent arguments and even stress-induced hair loss. Long-term dermatology treatments and delaying having children only worsened the cycle. His wife had a bad habit of going out, drinking, and not contacting him until late, which became more frequent until they couldn't keep the marriage going, and ultimately got a divorce, with him leaving with just his clothes. James asked me if being married was good. Drunk, I said. Of course, it's good, but sometimes I think of you. How could I forget my first love? But I'm really happy with my husband. James regretted meeting the wrong woman. He wished he could come back to me, but had heard from friends that I was married and had given up. Then to find out the person he met was my sister was confusing. He loved her, but was unsure about seeing me just as a sister-in-law. We started reminiscing about our 20s over drinks, realizing we still had some unresolved feelings and ended up accepting each other. James was healthy and well-mannered. Meeting James while sleeping in separate rooms from my husband for years was thrilling. James secretly met me while preparing for his wedding, and I anxiously waited for his calls. I couldn't stop thinking about how much more manly James had become since our 20s. He joked about understanding what me and my sister had in common, knowing I should stop because of my sister. But the unfulfilled love made me want to rush to him if he called. I want my sister to be happy, but my heart is still in turmoil.